Dear friends, welcome to Think BRICS. Today, I would like to bring your attention to a piece of news, I should say, main media outlets, Western media outlets, gave little attention to. The news is India's anti-terror agency has arrested 6 Ukrainians and an American for allegedly training Myanmar's ethnic militias in drone warfare, exposing a murky network stretching across conflict zones. They are accused of entering the restricted border state of Mizoram without permit and then crossing into neighboring Myanmar with the intention of training anti-junta ethnic militias in drone warfare, including the operation, assembly, jamming, and handling of this weapons system. In my opinion, it's important. And today I invite our collaborator, Lorenzo Maria Pacini, who is a professor and for a long period was working with administration of Myanmar on government level as an advisor. Lorenzo Maria, welcome to Think BRICS.
Thank you so much, Nastya. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So I'm sure you have read this news, and in your opinion, is it important?
Well, what is happening now, it's a very curious situation. Let me give a kind of frame for what is happening, because it's very interesting, and this is like opening a new possible horizons of many issues for the world regions. First of all, I think we need to give the frame of some international events that are not the first time happening next to Myanmar. I'm talking about this kind of traffic of people, mostly contractors and mercenaries, which are working with the rebels, especially with the Karen groups. As we know, they are sponsored by Western organizations and mostly by CIA from the United States. Through some NGOs, which are based mostly in Australia, in some of them also in India, and in other countries around Asia, which are used exactly to put a kind of pressure on Myanmar as a region, as a country, and of course by his government. And let me please subline that the government in Myanmar is just changed with the elections at the beginning of this year, and the new government will swear at the beginning of April. So we are really in a very delicate moment, in a very delicate transition. So I'm talking about this kind of traffics of people, which started many years ago. Also before the so-called regime change in 2021, when in Myanmar there was the coup by the military junta, which established a new government for Myanmar, endured until a few months ago. These people, which are going to Myanmar as contractors, are mostly from some far-right, ultra-right groups of European countries. Many of them are officially declared as neo-Nazi or neo-fascist groups. And this is not a kind of a lateral information, because we have to consider that the battle of the independentists, so-called, of the rebels in Myanmar, in all those regions, are considered a kind of nationalist battles. So by other countries in Europe, mostly Europe, we always had some people deciding to move to Myanmar to fight against the government, which is considered a communist government. It was a socialist government for many years. And so they always framed as a kind of enemy. And this traffic of people from Europe to Myanmar is something that started already at the end of the 90s. And it was empowered a lot at the beginning of 2020, 2021. And it's very interesting that we are talking about Ukrainians, because as we know, and it's a fact, not a secret, we already have over contractors and voluntaries coming from other countries in Europe and also far away in other regions of the world, which are identifying themselves as nationalists, as neo-fascists, as neo-Nazis. And as we know, the whole boundarist group are welcoming them really well and strengthening great collaborations with mostly with groups, political groups and movements which are providing for them contractors. So we see that it's like moving the same kind of international trade just to Myanmar, because maybe it's the time for the Western powers to try again to set on fire the region, to make problems between the very good relation between India and Myanmar, and trying to force a little also the other partners which are playing in the region and which at the moment they are not anymore favored by the collective West.
I see. So for our audience who maybe don't know about what happened, so 6 Ukrainians, 1 American, a person called Aaron Van Dyke, with a very long history of participating in Iraq, Iran, I don't know, all in Ukraine, all types of wars. They were arrested in various airports in Delhi, in Calcutta, and then accused in terrorism. And not only, but and also accusation of drone trafficking, illegal. Lorenzo, what concrete evidence led Indian authorities to classify the activities of the arrested citizens as terrorism?
Basically, we are talking about the alleged cross-border activities. This has been the central issue pointed by the Indian authorities, which claimed that the group illegally crossed the border into Myanmar to collaborate with some armed ethnic militias and providing, of course, training in the use of drones. And let me say that drones are the problems which really doesn't own to Myanmar, because they are not using drones. They don't have this kind of military supplies. So it's sure that someone else is providing for them this kind of military weapon. So it's a very fragile regional context, and this accusation carries significant weight, let me say, because drones are now a crucial tools in every kind of new warfare. In the asymmetric warfare, we see that with the other conflicts which are going on in other regions of the world. So the transfer of technological expertise in this area can be interpreted as a multiplier of military capabilities for non-state groups. So to understand the gravity attributed to this by the New Delhi government, one must consider the nature of the armed groups which are active in Myanmar still nowadays. So since 2021, just to give a timing, most recent, the country has plunged into a kind of a very low-profile civil war involving, by one side, the Burmese army, and on the other side, some ethnic armed organizations. The Karen National Liberation Army, the Kachin Independence Army, the Arakan Army. Most of them are connected both to religious and ethnic groups, which, let me say, it's definitely not a problem for the Myanmar government. Myanmar is a country which always had many different ethnies, 51 the principal ethnies. They have different religions since many centuries. You can very briefly verify this. Every city you go, you have churches, mosques, Buddhist temples, etc. So they don't have any kind of problems of discrimination. But these groups, while having local and often divergent objectives, share a long tradition of armed resistance against the government, but also before 2021. So it's not a matter of the most recent government. And let me repeat, now we have a new one. So let's see what is going on, what will happen in the next time. So, and the perceived risk is that an advanced military capabilities could filter through these networks and also strengthen Indian insurgent groups. Because this problem is not only a matter for Myanmar army and government, it's a problem also for Indians. And we have already many tensions on the border with Bangladesh. And we know Bangladesh is a Muslim country, and India has huge problems with Bangladesh. So, as you see, this can really make the tension higher and higher and higher and become a problem of international security. So, a further factor contributing to the severity of these problems is the alleged existence of an international network to transfer military technology and contractors, as I said at the beginning. So this is confirming this potential presence of an international network. So all the counter-terrorism legislation, which in India is often applied broadly to prevent emerging threats, rather than respond to attacks that already occurred. But this is very important because we are talking about territorial violations, involvement of this network of people, potential impact on regional security, and also India is one of the main investors for the war, Southeast Asia, and with Myanmar. They have really good relations. Even if Myanmar is historically connected to China, they have this kind of expression to say that we are like cousins of blood, pakto. It's in Burmese language, which really means that they are connected to the Chinese people. But instead of that, they have really establishing good relations with Indians. So they have no reasons to make problems by both sides, because the investments that the government of India has are really huge, trust me. And on the other side, Myanmar wants to empower this collaboration. And they are doing that with the approval and the help and the collaboration of China. So this triangle is working really well. What will happen later after this kind of events? That's the question mark we are still open.
Another point of the seriousness of the situation is that this case was taken by Indian National Investigation Agency. So it's not a local police officers or regional police. It's a National Investigation Agency who's taking care of this case. Well, I read that the Ukrainian ambassador immediately asked to release Ukrainians because, of course, they are not guilty. They were just rambling near the Myanmar border without any permission. The same the same thing is about American citizens, but American embassy refused to tell anything, telling that it's personal. So this is personal, to go to Myanmar, to go to India with Indian visa, to go to the region where you should obtain a special permission to go closer to the Myanmar border. They call it personal. And I should add that this is not the first time foreigners arrested in this territory. Some months ago, it was a photographer from Belgium who had the same issue, making pictures without any permission. Well, actually, frankly speaking, I do not remember his faith. I think he was accused and then released. But those 6 plus 1, they were detained for 11 days. And 27th of March, so today's 28th, so yesterday, they had to, the Indian court had to decide what to do. And there is silence. No one knows what happened with that people. But you mentioned China also, all that triangle between India, China, Myanmar, and it's working well, you say. How has the conflict if any, in Myanmar influenced the involvement of foreign nationals in military training operations in the region?
Well, we have, first of all, to consider the geography of the country. The territory is much complicated in the north and in the northwest. Northwestward is the border with Bangladesh and India. It has always been a zone of very fragmented, with many problems in the past because of the presence of different groups, and many of them were nomads along the years, along the centuries. So people were moving a lot, and when they established something more perennial, they started to have huge problems connected to the religious migrations. As we know, India and Myanmar, they both share a little part of their religion, which is Buddhism by one side and also Hinduism. And Myanmar is famous for its very beautiful and important monasteries of the Theravada Buddhism. So, by this point of view, we've always been friends, and there is this continuity. The presence of Bangladesh in the midst, and on the other side also of Christians, made some problems along the history. But by both sides, they always figured out a way to live together. Let me say that India, for many centuries, has been multicultural and multi-religious, and they never had problems to integrate people. Of course, we know India, it's a country with 2 billion of people. It's a country where we actually don't know exactly, like many countries in Asia, which are the borders. So it's always a matter of law to define what is mine and what is yours. So this fragmentation is very important. Second part, we have different actors, I said. The Karens, the Kachin, all these kind of groups are pursuing different goals. They are financed by different organizations. They have still like a kind of parallel life, and they are making many problems also on the Chinese borders. China, for example, is involving a lot the anti-terrorist special forces to make clean the borders, also because they have very important international trades with the Yunnan region, which is the southern of China on the border with Myanmar. And there they had in the past many problems. But Chinese are really working well on the border, and they are ensuring to have a safe communication with Myanmar. That's pretty much the same thing with India, even if, as we mentioned at the beginning of this interview, we are talking about the National Agency for Anti-Terrorism, which is connected to the intelligence of India. And this means that they are posing their look on these problems really, really, really well. And we have a convergence, which, let me say, it's very complicated, because these armed rebels groups are very, very good armed by the West. They have money, they have internet connection, they have communications and socials with Western organizations. They are not isolated, they are not poor at all. And what they're doing day by day is managing little terroristic attacks in different regions. So, in this context, okay, very complicated, the contribution of foreign nationals can take various forms. Ideologically, we have volunteers which are motivated. I personally have met in my life some so-called volunteers which actually were contractors going to fight in Myanmar. Former military personnel or contractors, and technical experts. So the case of the Ukrainians and the American really fits into this dynamic, okay? And many Ukrainian citizens gained a direct experience in the use of drones in high-intensity war zones. So it's really possible that they have established in Myanmar, in those regions, a kind of training camp where they can really get the expertise on the field, on a kind of battleground, which is still active, which is a real high-level battlefield, and where they can, work to train their experts. But on the other side, let me say, this kind of ideological alignment really means a lot, because it's another tie that we can see with the Western organization, with the European Union leaders, with the United States of America. They have the same metrics, they come by the same origins, they are spreading the same ideology, trying to make problems, trying to destabilize, trying to really become a living trouble for those peoples and governments. So the conflict acts as a catalyst, and it offers a terrain when they really can expertise, when they can deploy, when they can exercise, and then maybe they can come back to Ukraine on other scenarios, and there they can fight with the skills they have taught. On the other On the other side, we also see that this traffic, as I said at the beginning, is still present. I would not be shocked if we would hear in the next months, just after the swearing of the new government, just after the beginning of this new phase for Myanmar, which also means a new phase for ASEAN countries, for all Southeast Asia, for this triangle with India and China, that we would listen about some news about other European contractors going there. And this really means that European Western countries are still continuing to do some special operations in other regions of the world to pursue the interest of the United States, of London, of the Western main leaders.
In order to destabilize the situation everywhere. About Ukrainians. Actually, there was an information spread by local media in India-Myanmar that foreigners, I mean Ukrainians and American, were arrested thanks to Russian intelligence, who passed the information to their counterparts in India. Of course, no one confirmed this information officially. And the ambassador of Ukraine in India told there is no reason to detain his compatriots, his Ukrainians, that they should be released immediately. There is no reason. Is it true?
Well, let me say that
because ambassador told that no sufficient evidence. No sufficient evidence.
This kind of events sometimes happens, but I would really like to focus on some points which, by my point of view, are enough evident for giving us an answer. First of all, we have Ukrainian soldiers. For what we know, all the Ukrainian soldiers should be engaged with the war against Russia in this moment. They have a mandatory deployment. They have this mandatory military service, and they are now also deploying women because they have finished the men. So it's very curious to send someone abroad in exactly those kind of zones of the world. I mean, they could train their soldiers in the rest of Europe. They are neighbors. They have lots of space. They are welcomed everywhere. We have over officers in Europe which are training Ukrainians is also before 2014. So that's a kind of fake secret. Okay, everybody knows. So if you're sending someone there, even if it's not officially, and even if it's becoming a problem for Ukrainian government and authorities, that's it. That's a fact. I mean, I don't think that India is lying to everybody and making this huge problem, because this, of course, really means a lot for diplomatic relations. We know that India has, in this moment, complex relations with both Ukraine and Russia, and it's seeking to balance strategic and economic interest. So, a legal case involving Ukrainian citizen and an American risks taking on a broader geopolitical dimension. Also about this American, we know what Americans are doing in Myanmar. I would like to remember that one of the latest movies of Rambo with Sylvester Stallone, the number 4, if I remember correct, was exactly Rambo going to fight with the Cadeans against the National Army of Myanmar. So that's the kind of informative war that they are using since many, many years. That's not news. So from the India's perspective, the central issue is not so much the nationality of those arrested as the nature of their activities. And by this point of view, I really think that Indian authorities are really doing well. And they don't want to have problems with Myanmar just for this kind of activities coming from other countries of the West. This cannot be justified. And they are applying the anti-terrorism law. And these, of course, can be justified as a preventive measure. So the Kiev's position, they called immediate release of its citizen. Yeah, of course. But the point is that they have been taken, doesn't matter if with the use of intelligence informations of Russia. We know that intelligence agencies of all countries are continually in connection each other and they are sharing information even when they are enemies. So it's completely normal. Also because Myanmar has good relations, again, good military relations with Russia and with Belarus mostly. And so it's perfectly normal if they have this. On the other side, we also know that it's totally normal if Russia is monitoring the activities of the Ukrainians abroad, as Ukrainians are doing with the Russians, because they are on a war. So that's a type of dimension which is common and which is totally normal. So I think that any request by both Ukraine and United States should be concluded if it really wants to maintain good relations, just with confirming and letting India's government do his job and their authorities doing his job. Would be very different if, and we will see with the next informations, if we will have some updates, because as you said, we still don't know anything. Yesterday was the expiring date for the solution. If they were sent by their governments, if they were there for some official missions, this would be a huge problem, because this could mean that they have managed, sponsored, and controlled an operation on a foreign field, which is actually completely forbidden and which is illegal. So let's see what will happen later. If we are not hearing anything and we will not have any updates, I think that this problem, maybe it's the most probable option of the truth, but we will see. New Delhi is aware of the case's international implication and seeks to manage it without compromising its regional and global interests.
About other, you told maybe we will in the future we'll see the other nations in Myanmar, in India, and the news I found just right now. Local police also arrested 2 more American tourists on Saturday for flying drones near Coast Guard headquarters in the southern city of Kochi, where India is harboring sailors from an Iranian ship that is hosted in military exercises in February. Another Iranian ship that India had hosted was torpedoed by the US early in the war, embarrassing New Delhi and killing dozens of Iranian sailors. So there are some movements. So
well, what to say? We heard about more Americans. So
yeah,
so clear friends, that they were not there just for vacations. That's clear.
I just want to say to our viewers, if you are a tourist or planning to be a tourist in nearest future, and you are planning to go in India, somewhere in Myanmar border, please don't fly drones over there. Don't make pictures. And don't make pictures. Well, does this case mark a shift in how India handles threats related to drone use and international networks.
So the case appears to indicate a meaningful evolution in India's approach to the emerging threats, and particularly was related to the use of these kind of dual-use technologies such as drones. And actually, this is something that happened very similarly with Ukraine and also with Russia. You cannot go with a drone in Russia now since the beginning of the special military operation. But it's pretty the same. You cannot do the same if you go to Washington, D.C., and you fly with a drone next to the White House. It's a matter of security. So India has progressively recognized that security challenges no longer stem solely from state actors or traditional insurgent groups, but also from a kind of fluid and transnational networks, which are operating to destabilize, to make problems, to trying to attack. Also, India, it's not kind of perfectly outsider by these problems in the world. Okay, they have their problems, domestic problems. They had some terroristic attacks. They had many of these problems. So drones represents, as we know, one of the most emblematic tools of this transformation, of how the new world systems, the new warfare is developing. And the experience of the recent conflicts, particularly the one in Ukraine, has demonstrated how even the small groups can gain a meaningful tactical advantage thanks to this technology. So for India, this risk is twofold. On the one hand, there is a possibility that domestic insurgent groups could acquire such capabilities. And on the other one, the country could become a conduit for the transfer of technology to other conflict zones such as Myanmar. So the recent arrests suggest that authorities are seeking to address both dimensions by adopting a more proactive approach. And this shift also has a sense for the relations with Myanmar, which are particularly sensitive in that zone. So the long border with the country has an interest in maintaining a degree of stability in the region for both sides, both for security reasons and for infrastructure and commercial projects. And there is a new corridor that India is developing with Myanmar, and which will be very profitable also for China. So they need to have a peaceful transfer on the border. And at the same time, it must manage the humanitarian implication of the conflict, such as the flow of refugees and the pressure from the local communities, which are real. Taking action against activities involving a Burmese armed group can therefore be seen as a way to signal to the new government its willingness to cooperate on a security matter. The military junta, the previous government, already had the chance to show to the world how they were keeping care about humanitarian problems. They have transformed the country, which is becoming a true superpower in not only the region, but in all Eastern Asia. And this means that India has only good perspectives in empowering good relations with Myanmar. So India, just to conclude, I think this is not only an isolated incident, but a sign of adaptation to a context in which technology, conflict, this global mobility are intervening in increasingly complex ways. And India is showing on the other side not only that they are, of course, applying their national law for anti-terrorism, etc., but they are telling to Western countries that they cannot anymore pass and use their territory, their people, their resources to go on with their plans for conquering the whole world. And on the other side, I'm pretty sure that if this kind of case will go on, Myanmar will be ready to answer. Now we had this kind of standby for the new elections. But let's imagine what could happen in another moment. This could become a huge international problem, where they will be justified to approach in a severe way. So I really think that if United States, Ukraine, and all the other chihuahuas of Europe are ready to make their business in that region, this is a clear message which is time to stop till the solutions and the answers are still balanced and not more aggressive as they are waiting for.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
You're welcome.
Just to one sentence I would like to add. When I was reading some news about this very case we are talking today, I found an information that earlier in January 2026, the government in China, Chinese authorities, sentenced 11 people called guilty. They were a death penalty sentence, called guilty for the activity of fraud centers in Myanmar. So the situation is very, very serious, and not only Indian side but also Chinese side looking at Myanmar with attention and interest, and they're trying to protect their interest also. Well,
try to imagine if this incident would happen with China. India has now a kind of positive and balanced relations with United States because of the good relation between Modi and Trump. Try to imagine what would happen if it would be in China, exactly in this moment of the international events. Yeah, that's it.
Because for me it was something I've never read before, that foreigners could be sentenced death penalty in China for fraud. It happened. Well, Lorenzo, thank you so much for your expertise, for your insights, for your vision, for your knowledge, and for your time that you spent with us today on Think BRICS. Dear friends, if you are not subscribed yet to our channel, please do it right now. You will find a lot of information in the nearest future about BRICS, about Global South, and everything you are interested in. Thank you, Lorenzo. See you next time.
Thank you so much, everybody.